And we are back. Great Lakes State Football, episode 38, talking everything football in the beautiful state of Michigan. And I'm Vince.
And I'm Brett. And Corey and I did a little Chinese fire drill this week.
Can you say that anymore? Is that politically correct?
I'm not sure. I don't think it's degrading, but
you guys did a little switcheroo. I joked with these guys in a text message. I said, Corey gets to tap out and Brett's tapping in. I have just me and Corey in our interview with Coach Gary Houghton, and now with our next interview, which I'll introduce in just a second here, I just got Brett. But what are we going to do with you guys? You guys are traveling all over for work. It is what it is.
Hey, man, it's Friday night and I'm on a podcast. I'm committed. Corey's doing other things.
We won't call him out for too long here, but we should, all three of us should be back next week for our state championship preview episode. Speaking of which, before we talk about anything else, just want to mention that we have a great interview coming your way in just a little bit here. We're going to talk about a couple things really quick, but Coach Sparky McEwen, the head coach of Davenport football, is coming on to chat with us about their big rematch with Ferris State. They played him 2 weeks ago and now are paired up with him again for the first round of the D2 playoffs. So we'll be talking with him in just a second. Before we get into that, though, we did not get a chance just yet to put out our semifinal picks for Michigan high school football. Brett, Corey, and I, off air, we did not end up recording semifinal picks, us chatting about this, but off air, we picked all 16 11-man semifinal games. So we will be posting that. Stay tuned if you follow us on Instagram and Twitter. We will be posting our picks for the semifinal games. We did repost our updated pre-playoff picks. As you may remember, before the playoffs, we all made Final Four and state championship picks for all the divisions, along with Tate Baker, who reports on Westside Football, and Goose Poop. So we have updated where everyone stands with their pre-playoff picks for the Final Four and state champions. We just reposted that to Twitter and Instagram, so check that out. But in terms of the current semifinal matchups, we did make picks for all those games, and those will be posted on Twitter and Instagram very soon. So unfortunately, not going to have time to chat about those games tonight. Please stay tuned. Next week, we should Wednesday morning have an episode posted previewing all of the state championship games. We're hoping to have on Goose Poop and or Tate Baker, who both have been on a few times now with us. So we're hoping to get both of them on, or at least one of them on, to chat about the state championship games as the semifinal games are being played mostly on Saturday. I think there might have been a couple Friday night games actually that might be finishing up. I haven't been on Twitter for a few hours here, but there might be a couple. I think Cass Tech and Belleville we're playing tonight. Haven't had a chance to check any of those scores, but anyway, Brett, anything else you want to mention here? Otherwise, I think we're good to go to get into our interview with Coach McEwen.
Yeah, let's do it.
All right,
real quick, just an update. Cass Tech. Well, I mean, by the time this launches, we'll know the winner. But Cass Tech is up 21-14 on Belleville at the end of the third quarter. That was 3 minutes ago.
Ooh, that's big time. That's big time. Especially coming off the news that their head coach was just suspended indefinitely, they said, until the 2024 season. So that will be an interesting development if they were to also lose following that announcement. Anyway, we'll get into high school football with a big preview state championship episode next week. Stay tuned for that. Otherwise, we're going to go ahead and get into the interview with Coach Sparky McEwen. I hope you enjoy the conversation and stay on afterwards as we wrap the episode up. We're going to go ahead and segue into the interview portion of the podcast here for episode 38. We have on a very special guest in head football coach at Davenport University, Sparky McEwen. He's a 1991 Ferris State grad where he was a 4-year starter in a multitude of positions, including quarterback, wide receiver, and defensive back. He spent 8 seasons as the head varsity football coach for Grand Rapids Creston from 1996 to 2003, leading him to the school's only state title appearance in school history. He would then spend more than 10 years as a player and coach in the AFL, Arena Football League, before returning to his alma mater, Ferris State, in 2012 as the wide receivers coach, where he helped as a member of the coaching staff lead them to a 28 28-game regular season winning streak in that span and an appearance in the D2 semifinals in 2016. He'd take over as Davenport's head football coach in 2017, taking over a program that he's essentially established from the ground up, with his first season in 2017 being only the program's second season in school history, their first year in the GLIAC Conference, and their first year in NCAA Division II. In 2022, his sixth season as head coach, he led one of the best turnarounds in all of college football, going from 3-8 in 2021 to 8-2 this season, the most wins in the young program's history, and qualifying for the Division II playoffs for the first time. Coach McEwen was just named the GLIAC Coach of the Year. Coach McEwen, how you doing?
Pretty good, guys. How are you guys doing?
Not
Doing
too
well.
bad. Again, as I mentioned before we started recording, didn't want to keep the intro there too long-winded, but didn't want to do a disservice to you and leave anything out.
No, and that just means I'm old. Listening to you rattle those things off, and when you said the 10 years in AFL is actually 13.
Oh, wow.
I'm like, you know what? That means I'm just getting old, guys.
Well, and I saw at one point it looked like your AFL career was overlapping with your high school coaching career, which that sounds like there's some interesting stories to that time period in your life. I don't know how anyone could do that.
You know what? It's funny that you say that, because a lot of guys, they miss that. There was a pretty significant part of my career that it overlapped, and it was tiring to say the least. But my head coach was Michael Trigg, awesome guy, mentor. He gave me that opportunity, man. But I did it for a number of years. He goes, "Hey, it's up to you to do this." He goes, "You're crazy to do it, but I just love coaching ball." Actually, what happened there was that the season would end in August, and then the fall high school season would pick up, and I was already a head high school coach. So it was pretty cool. I did that for a number of years, guys. And then when I got the head pro job, obviously I had to resign as a high school coach.
Yeah, because I don't understand. I myself coach high school football, and I'm not a head coach, but I watch our head coach. It's essentially a full-time year-round job. So hats off to you to do basically two coaching jobs at the same time. It looked like you played a year in the AFL while you were the head coach at Creston, which is also, I'm sure, an interesting story.
Oh, it is. How I decided to do that, that's another interesting for you, man.
We don't want to get too much into your AFL career without talking here about Davenport. Brett, unless you were going to add something there. I saw you were about to ask a question.
Yeah, I got to ask, was Ruben Riley, he went to Creston, right? The Michigan defensive lineman?
That was my guy, man.
Okay, he's at Christian now, isn't he?
Yeah, I coached him 4 years at Creston High School. He was like, when you talk about Creston High School, there's a couple of names that pops up, and Ruben Riley is probably number one.
Yeah.
Along with Carlton Brewster and Turner Nande and some of those guys. But Ruben, he was the guy.
And Javon Augustus, he was probably after your coaching time, but he went to Grand Valley because I played with Javon.
I had Pooter too.
Okay.
His name was Pooter.
Yeah, Pooter, his nickname.
What a name.
Oh yeah.
I love it.
We had him too. So had a lot of dudes, man. Had a lot of dudes. Aston Martin that went on to Grand Valley as well.
Okay.
Well, Coach, I'm sure we could sit here and talk all night about great stories from the AFL and your time coaching at Grand Rapids Creston. But we would like to chat with you a little bit here about your current coaching job at Davenport University. So first question here, really interesting, unique position you were in back in 2017, essentially taking over at the time what was essentially a startup program. I mean, I know in 2016 was their first year, but they were really just kind of getting their footing and establishing a football program that year. They weren't quite, even I think they were NAI at the time. I don't even think they were in NCAA D2 until that year that you took over. What was that process and experience like, essentially getting to create your own football program from the ground up, everything that you would want to instill as a coach?
Guys, really it was tough. I think it truly made it tougher that, they had played a season at the NAI level, because, all of a sudden you jump into the GLIAC, and, earlier, before we started, you guys were talking about this conference and how tough it is. And it is, as advertised, it's extremely tough, guys. I'm serious, man. This conference is it's a head banger.
Yep.
And so we get the job, and to be honest with you guys, that roster we had, there was no way we would be able to compete, in the conference of the GLIAC. And So it almost worked against us that we had the roster that we had at the time. We had some kids that decided to stay over, and they actually helped us bridge the gap. But other than that, I remember a quick story for you, going into the AD's office and saying that I needed 30 more helmets. And he says, 30 more helmets. And I said, yeah, I got 30 more guys coming in. Their heads are a lot bigger. We got some men coming now, And it was awesome. You guys know, man, when in the GLIAC, basically, you go through every team. These rosters are now FCS type rosters.
Right.
If you take the I don't want to slight anyone here, but I guarantee if you take the entire GLIAC, okay, and you give them 11 games, in the FCS, I think they'll fare well. And it just, once again, it's hats off to the coaches that's come along, the athletes that's come along, that has made this conference, top tier. So when we took over that job, it was tough because we had to flip that roster just so we can compete, guys. And
right.
If you look at that year, it was a 1-in-10 year. But if you dive in and peel back the layers, guys, we actually had 3 overtime games that year.
Yep.
And it was really unique. And then we had a couple other ball games that were, fairly decent and competitive. But then we went on to get the type of kids in that you could compete at the higher level. And it was great that we're talking about this, guys. I think my 13 years professionally really contributed to what you're seeing now. The transfer portal, when it hit the scene, I immediately, and people thought I was crazy when I would say this, but I was probably one of the first guys to say, oh, NCAA is free agent football now.
Yeah.
And that was in the AFL. Obviously, we didn't have our draft, not unless it was a dispersal draft. But guys, I was used to free agents. That was my life for 13 years, and I built those connections across the United States, and it somewhat, gave me the ability while I was at Ferris, and then obviously taking over at Davenport, to go out and get, athletes outside, of the Michigan line, So I think, 100% that had a lot to do with being able to go out and acquire those type of athletes via free agency.
What was that process like in terms of bringing in? I think the number that we saw was 63 transfers. I think you guys brought in. That must have been quite the dedication from the staff in terms of recruiting in the off season, and hats off to you guys. That's an incredible, group to bring in. I'm sure obviously we're contributors. A lot of them were contributors right away. I don't know if Brett, if you were going to add to that, Brett.
Yeah, I was looking at the roster. It's from all over the country. You got guys from Florida, California, Ohio State, Auburn, Kansas. You
guys must have been putting some miles on your cars or something. That's quite the recruiting trail.
Guys, I could tell you this much, man. We had our banquet the night of the selection show. Was pretty cool, and we really didn't know if we're going to get in. Everyone there was novice at the process, and I knew we had a heck of a shot at getting in because of our points that we accumulated and that we had the 6th toughest schedule.
Right.
But I was nervous. I was nervous watching. But the reason I bring this up to you is because I think the 60 is a little exaggerated a little bit. I think they threw in the fact that we still had our high school kids that we recruited and brought in. But it was hey guys, it was a big number though. It was a big number. But I'm just gonna tell you. I shared with the audience there my tweet the day after, 1 week ago, this coming Sunday. I shared a tweet with the audience there, the tweet from the year before. Okay, I had Jalen Robinson. He was our all-conference safety, came in, and man, we were just looking at each other and truly pissed off about what had just went on. Okay, I felt like we had got our culture into the place we needed to go, but guys, COVID recruiting killed me, and I mean literally it killed me because it was just like we're here on the phone on virtual talking now. And my background has been significant in regards to recruiting, man. We beat the path, man. We go out there and we do it. Well, when it came to COVID, we couldn't do that, so all of our recruiting was via, virtual.
Yep.
And guys, we missed some dudes, and they almost tore my team apart. As much as I love the fact that these kids have an opportunity to go to other schools across the country, and you love that for them, and I'm cool with it. But everyone out there is not equipped to do it in the classroom, to do it on the field, to do it in a true football team culture.
Yep.
So you got to be careful. And I got bit, and I made a promise to my guys on the tweet. I said, never again. I said, I failed my seniors, and I really felt strongly about that. So we have our own niche of doing this, and we go out, we try to vet them as much as we can. We make our phone calls from our connections. We talk to more than 2 or 3 people, and we try to talk to teammates. And you try your best to pry it out of coaches, and just say, hey, come on, man, don't screw me over on this one. What's up with this guy? Why is he leaving you? And so there's a leap of faith there with trust as well. So, but, we made that promise that we were going to go back to work. We got back into the trains, planes, automobiles, man. And we went everywhere, guys. And we beat the bush. And there's a lot of guys I didn't sign because after meeting with them or bringing them in, I was like, nope, he's really good, but he cannot play for us here. He's not a DU guy. He's not the type of kid that we want to lead us. So we didn't want to sacrifice who we are as men and coaches just to go and get one extra win or something like that.
That's tough to do, especially if you got a real talent, but you don't want him to come in and disturb your program.
Oh man, Brett, I'll tell you what, I had a guy, and when I say guys, I took it to heart. I really almost screwed this thing up because I signed these guys, and I thought that they put on a great face for us because I couldn't get them here with me. It was virtual,
Right.
And so you only could do so much virtual,
Yeah.
You need to get a guy here, spend some time with him, go see him, go see people that he's dealing with, go meet his parents, watch how he interacts with his family, his sister. We need to see all those things before we make a final decision on if he can come play for us.
Yeah, that personal touch, I think, is pretty huge. I know a lot of, I coach high school football. And a lot of things I tell guys thinking about going to college, play college football, is that visit and overnight. I always tell kids taking an overnight and spending time, not only with the staff, but with the guys on the team. So you don't have, when you're stuck on Zoom, just talking on a computer, you don't get those personal touches and those connections, where you can connect with those teammates. And I'm sure that was a very challenging process. So I'm sure it was nice to get away from all this, even though we're on Zoom right now, but in terms of the recruiting trail, that was probably nice to get away from it.
No, it was, and like I said, we're very careful with the guys, and just like now that the season's over, I'm pretty good with keeping up on my emails, unlike Tony and Nice. I think he had something like, the last time I was with him, like 27,000.
Oh my
God. But my emails just the other day, guys, this is no lie, and I do a really good job of keeping up on them. I was up over 460 some emails. And
was that like one day?
Yeah,
that was a good day.
And I finally got it down, but guys, it was guys that are in the portal. And I mean, guys, it right now, I'm at 335 now. It's still going off, with my filter. But my point here is that everyone wants that instant satisfaction.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Players and coaches too, and I know we had an amazing season this year. My kids, man, They played really hard for me. My coaches really worked hard for me. They all did a great job. But my story is it just didn't happen overnight. I almost screwed it up single-handedly myself, but I returned enough guys off that team that, they saved the ship. It's been working process because we really, and I'm big on culture. I know you hear coaches talk about it a lot, but
Yep.
we really emphasize it. And the guys that come into our program, they'll tell you that it's no lip service. There's things that we do that a lot of these Division I kids, they didn't do at their campuses. We love these boys. These are our dudes, man. These are our dudes. Today we're at practice, or the day before, and I've changed so much. I got my quarterback, Whitaker, with some of the other quarterbacks. We're going through special teams. Now we're building a snowman. Dude,
You gotta have fun. At the end of the day, it's a game too. You gotta have fun. You gotta have a good time.
Hey, dude, back in the day, I'm telling you, I would have lost it. I would have, listen, they would have got Bobby Knight. I'm telling you right now.
Throwing something out onto the field.
I would have went over and kicked the snowman and lost it, So it's, times have changed, and these guys I have on my team, they're awesome. And I think they're good for me. They're therapeutic for me. But I just looked over the other day. I'm like, wow, I've changed a lot. My starting quarterback with the other guys are having fun building snowmen. And then it seems like I got 30 some out Floridians on my team. And you're talking about guys that's never even seen snow.
Right.
So I'm like, Sparky, chill out. Just let these dudes roll with it,
So it's same kind of within the same vein, same breath there. You're talking about these guys that stuck it out or stayed with the program and your staff from that tough season last year, but at the same time bringing in a lot of new faces from a lot of different places all around the country. What was that off-season approach like with such a unique mix of returners, maybe who'd been in the program for a few years, but also a lot of new faces. So you got guys who have the sting of a tough and disappointing season, but then you have guys who, didn't go through those disappointing losses, but trying to bring them into that chip on the shoulder, trying to get them motivated to attack this season and improve upon last year. What was that process like?
Great question. That was one of our fears. And like I said, coming off that COVID recruiting, we knew we wouldn't do it that way again. We called in our leadership council, and it was pretty much, man, asking for forgiveness and saying, hey, man, trust me, I screwed this thing up. It wasn't on you guys. It was on me and the staff. And I wasn't proud of that. I really wasn't. And I just said, just give me a shot. Give me a shot. I'll get you some help in here. Meantime, our high school kids, because I'm a big believer, you build your championship core through the high schools, okay? And wherever, and I think this is where my pro background really comes into play here. You start looking at your roster and you see where you need to fill the gaps, okay? And that would, at the same time, you would have to see what my war room looks like. I mean, it's like Rain Man stuff going on in there, guys. You'll be like, what the hell is this? But we'll look and we'll put a value on a kid. I'm going back to like some Oakland A's type stuff here. We'll put, a value on a kid and what's his year, how much has he been on the field, what's his numbers look like, can we get him to perform next year? If so, I want a graduate transfer. Okay. If I see another kid's 2 years away, I want to go get a 4-year transfer, but a 4-year transfer with grades that's over a 3.0. Okay. If it's a guy that we know needs just one more year to become a really good football player, that grad transfer that I want, he's got to only have 1 year,
Right.
So
you turned the transfer almost into like an analytics
kind
of situation.
Yeah. You got to narrow down. I mean, there's so many players, you got to narrow it down.
Yeah, you truly do, because and then another thing is you got to take a look at what kind of culture do you have to bring this guy in?
Right.
They've got to be able to mesh with what you have there. So a lot goes into it. And I think at the end of the day, you don't want to be a crapshoot. I think if you study it and if you work it, you can make it work for you. But I'm also living testimony that if you just go out there and just start signing dudes,
Right.
it could really blow up in your face.
Yeah, and that's obviously you don't want that happening.
No,
and obviously, that didn't happen. And kind of moving into a little bit closer here into game week, things went very well this year, 8-2, obviously coming off of that 3-8 season, very successful year. Obviously, though, a tough ending, starting 8-0, highest national rank, I think first national ranking in program history, and then subsequently the highest. I think you guys peaked at 13, which was awesome to see. I think at one point we had, I think, 4 GLIAC teams nationally ranked, which was, like we said, tough
conference,
right? More than half the conference. Very tough conference to be playing in. So speaking of the GLIAC again, tough conference. Coming from Ferris State and coaching with Tony Anise as the wide receivers coach from 2012, 2016. A kind of a unique aspect of the GLIAC right now is, as I mentioned kind of before we started recording, Anise, my co-host here, Corey, or Brett, and one of our others, Corey, who's not with us tonight. We often refer to Anise as like, he's kind of like the D2 Nick Saban, where Nick Saban, in the SEC gets all these former coaches, assistants who become head coaches, come back to the SEC. Now you have Tony Anise in the GLIAC, who has all these former assistants who are taking over other GLIAC programs and, coaching at high level, at a very high level. What is that like in terms of the competition level within the GLIAC? Do you think that's something that raises the level of competition? And then is there a certain level of difficulty when you're kind of coaching against former colleagues, and I'm assuming friends, when you spend a lot of time with some of those guys? I'm sure some of them would refer to each other as friends, but absolutely colleagues, having coached together for periods of time.
It's interesting. Great question once again. The both of us had the same coach in Keith Outerby. Okay. And Keith does not like playing his, ex-players or assistants and things like that. And I get it. I understand it. Tony, he doesn't mind it at all. Tony's he's a ball coach, and he doesn't care. He's done a great job. I call him the mad scientist. He's done a really good job. He's put together some great staffs. And at one point, he had, Lou Esposito, that's at Western now.
At Western, yeah.
He's at Rob Zeitman, that's now at Jenison, but he was at Kent State. You got Ryan Brady, that's at Saginaw. Kyle Nystrom, that just resigned from Northern Michigan, but previously he's been a lifer as a coach. The list goes on and on. Tony's a ball coach, man. He knows a lot of people out there, and he's brought a lot of knowledgeable people around him, so a lot of credit goes, to him. But in our situation, it's really hard because, man, you're going with a baby into a conference of this magnitude, and it's, guys, I was close to not even like taking this job because I knew how difficult it was going to be. Tony or any of these other coaches weren't going to have any mercy on me. Okay.
Yeah.
And it's just the nature of the beast,
Yep.
And I knew, you guys just said it. We had 4 teams, gents, out of the 7 and ranked in the top 20. Okay. And then you have Ashland that just left, and
they're top 10.
They just left, but Lee made a comment on one of his shows that, hey, I'm glad I don't have to play those guys anymore. And Tiffin, they were in this conference as well.
Right.
People, forget, and Hillsdale's, they just keep doing their thing, so this conference is a beast. And I'm sitting here going, man, do I take this job? Because, we get hired to get fired, and, if you don't produce some type of results, they're going to eventually, get you, so when I took it, I said, what the hell, let's go, roll your sleeves up. Let's go to work. I've done this kind of thing my entire career. I would love to inherit one of those programs, dude, that's just like ready to win, like, that's, but I think it's who I am.
Wishful thinking, right?
Wishful thinking. I think it's who I am. And, I've embraced it. I'm cool with it because it's a lot of work that goes into this thing. But back to playing against Tony, what he does is extremely difficult to prepare for. And then one of the things Tony don't get enough credit for, he gets his kids ready to play. Okay. And guys, let's be real. We all played the game. You're a student athlete, and you can get lazy mentally at times. Yep. Tony doesn't allow his kids to get lazy mentally. Of all the teams in the GLIAC, that's the one team I can honestly tell you that I think it has a little bit to do with the fact that I coach there, and those student athletes, they know me, and they know we're gonna line up and we're gonna get after you. Every other team, I kind of felt like they were kind of like, it's Davenport, this is a dub, We just got over not being scheduled on homecomings, by the way. That was one of my first goals. We used to do like 6 homecomings a year. Okay.
Oh God.
Yeah. It was
that's just disrespectful.
Hey, no mercy.
Right. Right.
At least we don't get those anymore. So, but yeah, it was one of those deals where I said, this is going to be tough sledding for us in this conference. We better do something now and fast just to at least compete. And I think we've done a pretty good job of that.
I'd have to agree with you, Coach. And within that same vein, Brett, unless you have anything else to add, I feel like that's a great transition into the week at hand here.
Yeah, absolutely.
So 2 weeks ago, speaking of Ferris State, you guys suffered, obviously, first loss of the year, tough loss to the defending national champs, Ferris State, but, still finished 8-2, with your other loss being to the number 1 team in the nation, Grand Valley, as we're just talking about the toughness of the GLIAC. There's no slouches. You turn around, make the playoffs, as you said, highly anticipated at your banquet there, not sure if you were going to get in. You get in. But you got a rematch in the same region with Ferris State, first round. What's the approach? And obviously don't want you to give away your game plan or anything, but what's that approach been like? Tough to beat a team twice on Coach Anise's end. It's very hard to beat a team twice in college, in any level of football, in my opinion.
Yeah. When the selection show came out and everyone's got all their different boards and everything, and, part of one of the deals is that NCAA says they don't want any rematches early. All right. If you guys recall, the first game they threw up on the board was like Ashland versus somebody. I'm like, well, the hell, there's that whole deal goes with no rematches. Mm-hmm. And I immediately got worried. And then all of a sudden they popped up the Region 3, the toughest region, not just because we're all in it, but it truly is it's ridiculous.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
And they pop up and Northwest Missouri shows up right away.
Yeah, I saw that.
I'm like, oh, it's all good. They're a blue blood. I get it. But I'm like, okay, we're getting ready to get messed over here, And then I started thinking, it's going to be Ferris. It's going to be, it's going to be Ferris. The NCAA's not, they're going to, it's going to be more about the money, I think, at this point in travel and weather and all that other stuff, and I get it. The costs are way up. So it's easy to put DU and Ferris back together. And I tell you something, we have all their games loaded in already. We know the relationships. We know the people. It made it easier to game plan. Okay. It made it easier for both sides.
Right.
Because all the breakdowns are there, guys. And we just had to load up the last game that they played against Wayne State. All the credit goes to Ferris and what we did in that first matchup. But you can't have a ball bounce off your hands into an awaiting DB that goes for 6. You can't start a game off that way.
3 points, yeah.
I mean, you can't, not that way. Come on, guys. Before they take an offensive snap, they get 6, and it was kind of that way the rest of the way. And then they kind of put their foot on our throats. Okay.
Took the momentum and the wind away and never looked back.
Well, it was weird. It was a weird game because we could, we try and start something up and then they'll shut us down. And before you know it, guys, the score was truly, we came out at the half, we scored. It was 14-7, went like I think 9 minutes, 10 minutes left in the
Right.
third. And it didn't feel that way. Okay. Because that first drive was significant. We took a 75 and we did it easy. It was nice. But then they were like, okay, don't forget who we are. And they drove it 75 right back. And I'm like, oh boy, so it's a machine that we got to face. But with that being said, we really felt like that moment, and I try to tell my players, don't allow the moment to be bigger than the reality. And the reality is, come on, guys, we've been there, done this. We play football. We love to play football. It's the boys are out having fun. And that's what we have tried to sell our guys. And we're back in that same situation. I said, look, we know when you drive into this place, you see all the national championship banners. Well, if you didn't see them before, now you see them. Now that doesn't matter. We know where our locker room is. We know where we're going to get taped. We know where we're going to go eat. We know we're sleeping in the same hotel. Hopefully the fire alarm doesn't go off again.
Oh man.
Yeah, that was awful. So we're excited about this game, and we know we don't stand much of a chance with the experts, and we get it. We understand why, but we're all right. We we finished 6th in the country, I think, in causing turnovers. So we'll hit you. We could throw it around the yard, so we could score. So I think we got a shot.
Well, I think that's a great message to end this on here. We don't want to take up too much more of your time here, Coach, because obviously you got to get back to game planning. Brett, got anything else you want to add? Otherwise, we'll let Coach McEwen get back to prepping for Ferris State.
Got me ready to throw on a helmet tomorrow.
I'm all pumped up. I'm ready to. I got one more year. I had an injury in college. I got one more year of eligibility. I don't know how useful I'd be, but man, I'm ready to play some football now.
Hey guys, I love it. I tell you what, if the walls could talk tomorrow, we're gonna be ready to go. We're gonna be ready to go.
We'll be rooting for you.
Well, Coach, thanks for coming on. Appreciate your time, and good luck this week. We'll be watching. Good luck against Ferris State in the D2 playoffs.
Hey, appreciate what you gents do for football, man. I'm a football head. I love this stuff here, man. Anytime you need anything, let me know.
Appreciate it, Coach.
Thanks so much.
Guys.
Good luck tomorrow.
Yep, go Panthers.
Hope you enjoyed the interview there and discussion with Coach Sparky McEwen, the head coach at Davenport University. We really appreciate Coach McEwen coming on, taking time out of his week, especially with a big matchup tomorrow. I believe he was doing that discussion from his hotel room, it looked like. So we really appreciate his time late on a Friday night with a big matchup coming up tomorrow to chat with us lowly podcasters, Great Lakes State football. But seriously, Coach McEwen, if you're listening, appreciate your time, and good luck this weekend. Good luck tomorrow or today. I think this episode will, if you're listening, may be coming out, or you may be listening to it on Saturday. So big game, obviously. All right. With that, I think we're going to wrap things up. As I mentioned before, the discussion there with Coach McEwen, we plan on bringing you guys a big preview for the state championship games with hopefully Goose Poop and or Tate Baker, one or both of them next week. All of us, Corey should be back as well. So hopefully we are full force to preview the state championship games. And as I mentioned, please keep an eye out on Twitter and Instagram for our semifinal picks. We picked all 16 games, and we'll be getting that up here very shortly. Speaking of which, if you enjoy what you've been watching and or listening to, please check out our social media pages. Follow us on Twitter at GLSF Ball. Follow us on Instagram at Great Lakes State Football. Subscribe to us on YouTube, also Great Lakes State Football. And then you can add, if you like the audio versions, you can add us on Apple, Spotify to your library, Great Lakes State Football, or any of your favorite podcast stores. Lastly, as we've mentioned the last couple episodes, we now have an affiliate sponsor with NeuroPeak Pro in regards to their Intel belt. Which is a huge advantage for athletes trying to look into controlling their breathing and stress management levels. It is a bit more expensive product, but with our discount code, you can get 20% off. And if you're a coach looking for, an advantage to your team, or you're an individual athlete, it could be that extra step to up your game in an aspect of sports training right now that is fairly new and groundbreaking. So, episode 38 here, Great Lakes State Football, interview with Coach Sparky McEwen. I'm Vince, co-host Brett. co-host Brett. No Corey. No Corey.
Corey.
And go green. Go Chargers.
Go blue.
Go Comets.
Let it snow.
Go Lions.